Hey everybody, welcome to my Suburban Oasis. My name's Soleil and I garden in a Zone 6A in mid-Michigan. And today is our day for our weekly walkabout and garden tour. So let's go ahead and get started. It's been a beautiful day today, but we're definitely in the midst of some construction over here. We have some parts of the deck that we want to replace. So we've gotten about half of the deck stained, but we need to add in some new boards. And so we're working on that right now. But over here in the garden, things are looking lovely. As usual, we have some blooms in this garden bed, but they're starting to get to the end of their stems here. So I'm going to be clipping these back. These salvia have been blooming for a couple of weeks steady. And now I'm going to probably be clipping them all the way back down to the ground. That way I get a really nice second or third flush of blooms from these, depending on how often I cut them back. And they're finished quite early this summer or spring. I guess we're not quite to summer yet, but they definitely went over fairly quickly. We have our incredible hydrangeas, which the buds have just really gotten large now. So I'm expecting them to start opening this weekend. We have some beautiful foxgloves happening in this garden. Quite a few of them over in this area. And some deep dark ones over here. I love those. I mean, they're almost purple. I've not seen any quite that dark before. Our multi-blue clematis is still blooming, but starting to drop some of its petals. This one may rebloom some over the summer, but it also puts on some gorgeous seed heads. Our little hottie hydrangea is looking great right here, and I started getting out some of the cushions for my chairs. And I think I'm actually going to paint these chairs a little bit more of a bronze color. But look at what is blooming right here. Isn't this gorgeous? This smells so wonderful, you guys. This is the Snow White, and this is a double flowering mock orange. And it took a while to really do well and thrive in my garden, but between last year and this year, I'm really happy with it and just loving those blooms. Aren't they gorgeous? The scent off it is just amazing. The spirea blooms haven't opened yet, but we're starting to see a little bit of color starting on them. And they have gotten really big this year, so I'm actually starting to think about taking the rose out and moving it, but we'll see. There's always so much to think about as the garden progresses during the summer, and thinking about, you know, what may be moved into different areas as you see things grow and fill out. Now we have an incredible blush down here that we planted last fall, and it's starting to bud up, so I'm excited about that because that was just a very small, I don't even think it was a quart pot, maybe a 2.5-inch pot, something like that. And then we have a mini mauvet over here. So the berry white hydrangea right here is just huge. It has really, really massively leafed out, and the stems are a gorgeous red color. No signs of blooms on that yet. We've got lots of buds though on our All the Rage roses, so I'm expecting to see those within the next week here. Very nice and healthy looking. And then we have some more foxgloves along with the alliums, which are starting to go over by the fountain here. And over here we have some Johnson's blue geraniums that are starting to bloom back behind the forsythia bush. Those are a gorgeous blue, and they will just kind of make their way through all of that different foliage and shrubbery. We have a pink marvel right here. This is a gorgeous salvia. And the calyx on these stay a really pretty color, you guys. So even after they're done blooming, you see a stunning color on those. We have the Let's Dance Rave Hydrangea, still working on growing in this area. I think it really needs to get well rooted in. But this is our quickfire hydrangea next to it, which is definitely getting ready to bloom. You can even see the white in the bloom. Some people who are subscribers have indicated that theirs are already blooming. So I am really excited and anticipating the bloom soon. We have some more of the pink marvel right here. And the bees are really, really loving this allium right here, the Sicilian honey garlic. And so they're starting to pollinate it, and you see after they're pollinated, they go from kind of draping down to pointing back up like rockets towards the sky. This Let's Dance Can Do hydrangea is doing really well. I see lots of buds starting to form in it. So we'll definitely be getting some blooms on that probably soon as well, which is wonderful. The Weigela is no longer in bloom, and I got some questions about how to prune that. Usually I just do kind of one stem at a time, cut it back to where I want it to be. You don't want to try to make hedges out of them or anything. Our sedum are doing really well along the edge. We have some Pure Joy sedum right here. And I believe this one is the Dazzleberry sedum, along with our dianthus, which are just lighting up the garden now. The 9-bark is starting to go over with its blooms, but it still looks really beautiful as the old growth kind of drapes forward, and then you can see the new growth comes in upright. And I'm trying to make sure that things don't grow through the fence. That was something I didn't really think about with this fence, is sometimes there might be a random branch or vine that climbs through it. So I'm trying to make sure that I take care of that. We have this spirea back here putting on some color and some buds. This is a double play spirea. And I know this is like my third week for saying that I need to be trimming up these barberries, but I really do need to get after it, and I think that's going to happen pretty soon here. I vow to do it before our next tour. How about that? Well, this garden bed, I think, is just shining in terms of the dianthus right now. So just look at the color. I even planted some towards the back of the border, just in little pockets, so that it would shine through, and it's really doing a good job of making things glow here. It is about time for me to come through and cut the chives back. You can see the center is starting to splay out, and you start to get a little bit of kind of pinky red in the center of the blooms, which means that they're about to go over. So I like to cut them all the way back down to the ground. Sometimes I get another flush of blooms from them, but also as a result of that, you just make sure nothing gets reseeded anywhere. Our Pugster blue butterfly bushes are doing really well down here. So we'll start to see those come up, and I think by getting the chives cut back, that will give them a little bit more sun and heat as well, which they absolutely love. So what did I do with my planters? Well, you guys, I didn't end up painting them black, but I did end up painting them called an anodized bronze color, and I painted both the pillar and the pots using the exact same color, and I think they turned out really nicely. So I'm excited because now I'm going to be planting in them. I've got some plants for them, and I can't wait to get those in. So our redwood over here is really starting to look like a nice shade tree, and I'm looking forward to that continuing to grow on, and I really truly am seriously considering cutting this one down because of the fact that it does not look as healthy as the other one, and I'd rather get rid of it when it's still so small than wait. So We've got some really lovely buds going on over here on this rose, which is, I think it's called white ice. Oh, iceberg. I'm not sure, you guys. I'd have to look it up. Sorry. All of the lilies are looking nice and healthy, and I think they're getting close to the stage where they'll begin to put out some stalks. So things are looking great in our woodland garden also. My husband did do a wonderful job of mowing and edging the lawn, and I will, for those of you who have asked, try to get some footage of him actually working the edges of the rocks, because people have asked, you know, how I keep the grass out of the rocks, and really it's just the way he uses the edger. So in this garden bed, the catchfly are still continuing to bloom, but we're also seeing a very similar color in the penstemon that's in here, which is like a dusky lavender color. The firelight hydrangea here is looking really healthy and great, as is the April night salvia. And this April night salvia bloomed 3 or 4 times last year for me, so I hope it really does that well again. Now I have come through and started to kind of thin things out a little bit over here, so you'll notice I no longer have the August moon hostas in this end garden circle, if you will. They start over here now, because I have been removing some of them so that I can divide some of them and make them a bit smaller, because they've gotten so large, and kind of shaded out some of the other plants that we have here. But I think that things are looking good, and it's given a little bit more light to some of the other plants that we have here. Oh, this heucherella is not doing so great. I did transplant this one, and I'm not sure, but it just doesn't seem to like where it's at now. Just a little too much sun for it after being in the shade for a while. But just look at the beautiful new growth on this pieris. It's so glossy and green. Oh, that's gorgeous. And we're getting some nice new growth on this one as well. I've come through and kind of cut some of the outer leaves off of some of these really giant hostas so that they don't completely shade the pieris either. And I'm just going to have to continue to come through and manage that this season, because they have gotten so big. I'll show you here. Just by looking at this, you know, they are massive because we've gotten so much rain and the weather has been so fantastic. And look at the goat's beard, you guys. Isn't that beautiful? Now, I promised you I would take you to the way back, so let's head back there real quick before we get too far into the woodland garden, because my husband did mow back there for me. Okay, well, here in the way back garden, we have some of the catmint blooming right now, and this is where I transplanted one of the Miss Kim lilacs. So we'll have a lilac back here, which I think will be fantastic. The other one I gave to a neighbor. The mums are getting nice and big and bushy, and you can see we have some tiramisu irises that are sticking up above the foliage right now, which is fantastic also. Can't wait to see those blooms. They are gorgeous. And the path right here is looking great. I am going to have to do that cut back on the vinca that I talked about before. But lots of new growth on our pulmonarias back here. I'm trying to start cutting back some of the old blooms. The epimediums are still doing really well right in here, along with the brunnera. And if you see that tall bluish colored plant, that's a meadow rue, so that should be blooming really soon. I planted that last fall. I've never had a meadow rue in my garden yet, but I've seen pictures of them and I think they're gorgeous. So right here is a really pretty scene with the autumn ferns coming up through, oh, the vinca and the lamium. So yeah, everything's looking nice and full and healthy back here. I did come back and do a little bit of trimming, but I've got a ways to go on it. Oh look, we have a foxglove down here that's in bloom. I didn't even notice that. I may be planting some of these Brilliance autumn ferns back here that I have in other parts of my garden, because I don't think that they really fit as well in the woodland garden as they do back here. For some reason, they just don't go with the colors that well. So let's take a look at that. Here we go. All right, so the curly fries hosta is doing exactly what I want it to do, which is kind of draping over the edge of the rocks here. Isn't that cool? I love it. It's taken a while for them to kind of bulk out after I did a massive division of them and kind of got them down to just one small division. The Mega Caramel Heuchera is amazing right now. Look at that. And we have buds on this can-do hydrangea right here. Getting much, much bigger. And if you recall, I had cut back this Queen of Hearts Brennera, and it's starting to shoot out some new large leaves, and it will continue to do that until it is nice and lush and full. You may notice I transplanted a tassel fern over here. There were two next to each other. I just needed to provide a little bit more space for the hydrangeas in here. And this is the area that I'm talking about in regards to digging out the autumn ferns probably this fall, because right here I just feel like the colors are not quite right. I feel like it clashes a little bit with the June hosta, and I don't want to move the June hosta, but I do think that having more ferns on the back hill will be even more beautiful because they bring another color back there. The dogwood is still pushing out new growth. Look at those beautiful leaves with their texture. And we are almost to blooms with this oak leaf hydrangea. Now I'm going to talk about these chairs in one of my next videos, so stay tuned for that. But I got rid of one of my I got rid of my old swing, so I can't wait to share with you a little bit about those chairs because they're gorgeous. This oak leaf hydrangea, I don't know if you can tell the size of the leaves on this, but it's getting quite large, so that's thrilling to see. And everything's just massive back here right now, thriving and full. And we're about to have some really nice, warm, sunny days. On this particular boxwood, I need to trim it, but then I tied up some of the new growth that's in the center to this stake so that I can try to double ball topiary in the future. Hopefully that will work for me. We've got some flax that are starting to bloom over here. This is the cloudburst flax. And in addition to that, we have some of the scabiosa that is blooming along the edge of this entire garden bed. So we have the larger one over there, and then we have the small ones that dot along the front of this garden bed here. And the Schubertii are all like stars in the sky. So pretty. The Scarlet O'Hara Pieris also continues to push out some new growth. I've just been really thrilled with how shiny and glossy the leaves on these are. It's not something you get very often in plants that are in our zone, so I highly recommend Pieris for a shade plant for anyone. Our Gold Strike Alchemilla mollis, or lady's mantle, is blooming now. It's quite profuse and large. I'm looking forward to dividing some of that this fall. And I do have my very first rose in bloom. This is the high voltage rose, and it's a beautiful buttery creamy yellow. You can see we have some more buds and something's eating on the plant, but I do not use insecticides, so it just kind of happens. Our hibiscus are starting to come up. We have the evening rose hibiscus on either side of this area of the garden. And you can see that the the seven sunflower shrubs here are just getting really, really big, and the leaves are so gorgeous. Look at how they curl. I just love it. And I got some new cushions for my chairs over here, so I'm really happy about that because they look pretty nice, I think, and it's nice to have them matching. I did move the old cushions over to these chairs for now. Eventually, I'll replace those as well and perhaps have them be matching the others. Just takes a little bit of money sometimes to be able to do things, and you gotta wait. This bed is just covered in color. We have the snapdragons over here and the Johnson's blue geranium, along with some violet riot and some New Dimension pink salvias. And more Incredible. And then in this garden bed, we have some beautiful blueberries that are starting to ripen, and some pristine purple penstemon. Isn't this pretty? It's such a deep, rich color. The bees love it too. We've got one right there. And this privet hedge is looking amazing. I love the glow it brings to this area, and I'm going to be trimming that up soon. And then we'll just kind of pan over this area so you can see what it looks like from afar. I've done some trimming up of things. The lungworts are really starting to fill out now with the warmer weather and the rains that we've had. And I did trim my 9 bark back, so I cut off some of the old wood. So you'll see this one looks a little bit more upright, but as it grows out, it will kind of become more graceful and drapey next to these ferns. Well, this hydrangea right here is the Bar Harbor Seaside Serenade by Monrovia, and it is going to be absolutely stunning. It is so big. It's probably 3 to 4 feet tall and wide. And then we have its little sister or little brother over here. It's not quite as big because it's getting a little less sun and a little less rain. And this is facing east, so it gets eastern sunlight, and then it also gets some sun from the south as well, because this way to the left is south. And the hellebores still seem to do very well in this area. Our Boom Chocolate geranium is definitely pumping out some blooms now. It's so huge. We're getting ready to have some phlox bloom. And you can see in this garden bed here, which I call the lady garden bed, we have blooms everywhere. This is one phlox. This is Blush. It's the opening act series from Proven Winners. And then you can see the dianthus is really beginning to color the front border so well. The deutzias are almost done blooming, so I am actually going to trim those shrubs back this year so they don't get too big. And the Pinky Winky hydrangea has some glorious red stems on that as well. And then the foxglove are looking beautiful in this garden bed. I planted some oregano in the lady's head for hair. I think that's going to be really pretty. That's the Kent Beauty Oregano. And then we have the catmint that's billowing out from the back. Everything in the potager is doing really well. I have a giant asparagus fern. And well, let's head out to the front garden, shall we? So as we walk into the front garden, I have put down some pavers right here just to cover up a muddy spot where, because we go back and forth between the front and back there, it's always worn down and the grass just doesn't grow. So sometimes you got to get creative. Well, here is our bird bath garden, which is looking great, and it's so fun to see the geraniums. The one on the left is blooming, the one on the right hasn't quite started yet. But I definitely got to get those boxwoods trimmed too. I'm starting to feel a little bit behind. Always right when I get to June, I start to feel behind because there's so much growth. Everything just gets so nice and lush and just full. And so I feel like I really need to get out and do some trimming. We have our cute little Dealy Bopper alliums here. And the sage that is variegated, along with the phlox. And some of the verbena, Berneriensis, coming up here. And the St. John's Wort Hypericum over here are doing great. You can see that our low growth sumac over here is just getting bigger and still coming up and through. So it's going to put on more and more growth as it gets to the sunshine here. Now, I took some giant blue hostas out of this garden bed and gave them to a friend because this side is now just in pretty much full sun almost. So I needed to get them out of here. And it doesn't look too empty considering how giant those hostas were that we dug out. The striptease hostas are looking really good though in this area anyways, so I think they look really nice next to the foliage that is blue on the blue shadow fothergilla. That blue foliage, you just can't beat that. I have to say it's probably my favorite blue foliage that I have. Our crabapple is still doing well. It's holding on. I've got it staked up. And I think it's going to make it. It's getting rid of some of the leaves that were kind of not so happy when I transplanted it. But the majority of them are staying on and it's putting on some new growth, so I know that it's doing well. Now in this garden bed, I pulled out some of the rocks. If you recall, I had some stones that made this into a circle right here, but I pulled those out and I'll show you what I did with them in a minute. And this garden bed, I moved the Paint the Town magenta just along the row in the front here. So there was a few of them that were still under the crabapple. And I moved the barberry that we had over by the hypericum over here. And it's starting to put on some nice color and some nice new growth. So that should be a really nice contrast to the Sonic Bloom Weigela back here. And these junipers have been very unhappy with all of the rain that we've gotten, but with the sunshine coming right now, I think they're going to perk up. We're getting some really good growth on this spilled wine Weigela here, so you can finally kind of see it. I definitely do need to come through and spray things for the deer. I haven't done that yet this week. You can see all the buds on these daisies that are starting to form. It is going to be glorious this year because we divided and added some additional plants, so they're kind of all along this row, and I can't wait to see them. That's going to be a beautiful pop of yellow color in here. It's just so bright and cheery. And you can see the dianthus really perk up this garden bed as well. We are still getting some small blooms on these Veronica, but nothing at all like we normally do because the rabbits have decimated them this year. You can see these oak leaf blooms are starting to form. They're starting to open. This is the jet stream hydrangea, same as the ones that are in the back garden. This one just gets a whole lot more sun, so the leaves stay a little bit smaller and a little lighter green. We have His Royal Highness irises blooming over here. And we'll just pop around to the front side of this garden bed. Again, His Royal Highness opening right here. It's real nice and dark when it first opens. And our Dreamland geraniums are starting to bloom. Now, as we walk up to the front, you will notice a big change, I think. One, we have all of those fantastic pots filled with plants because of our recent plant haul, but there's also a blank spot here. So I moved those rocks that we had over under the crabapple, as well as some that were in the drainage ditch, and I created a little bit more of a border. Remember, we talked about this last year in doing this. So I think it looks fantastic. I am going to let it settle in because really all it is mulch over really, really chopped down grass. So everything will need to settle, and I will probably begin planting this fall. But I think it's going to make a real nice statement up by the front entrance. We have some beautiful new growth on this azalea happening right now, as well as our hollies. And I've got to weed my moss. Some little seeds have decided to grow in it. We've got lots of new growth on this boxwood topiary, and the amaryllis are really starting to put out their leaves and collect the sunshine. And we definitely have some good growth happening out on our impatiens. They're really starting to fill out our window box and the front walk area. So our garden bed alongside the driveway is looking fantastic right now down here. But so is the mailbox garden. So our niobe is blooming, and that's the clematis that you see on the mailbox right now. It's a really dark, rich burgundy, and I'm super thrilled with the fact that I got it to climb on the other side of the trellis this year. So it has really done a great job. Isn't that beautiful? It's just like velvet. And we have some coneflowers. The purple coneflowers are starting to look like they're going to open and bloom soon here. And this faces direct south, so it just gets sunlight all day long. And the irises have done great out here. This is the other area where I picked a few extra stones out to use to make that new garden bed. Hopefully you caught my short video where I showed you these two shrubs in bloom together, the viburnum along with the black lace elderberry, because the viburnums are just about gone over, but the black lace elderberry is still putting out some blooms, and they are a beautiful flat saucer-like bloom, and it just contrasts so amazingly with the foliage. Now I've started getting some new growth down here around the base, so I'm going to prune that up as well because I like to keep this as like a small tree form shrub. So we'll be doing that soon, taking care of that. And our penstemon is starting to bloom out front here. We've got the Pike's Purple penstemon along the front of this garden bed. The blue fescue still looking good. The one that is kind of raggedy right there, you know, eventually that one will fill in as well. Our Gara has come back. The rabbits definitely have enjoyed eating on it, but I think it's finally getting to the point where it's going to push out some blooms. So maybe it's thick enough where they aren't as happy with it anymore. And our blooms are starting to come out on our pots back here with our African daisies, both the purple and yellow. I think they are a wonderful contrast to each other. The yellow just lights everything up. It's going to go great with those goldfinch daisies that I told you about. And back in the back here, our grasses are growing really well now that the sun has started to shine on them. So we have our prairie winds grass right here. It looks like I need to come back here and weed because we got some red buds that are coming up here. Well, lastly, I want to show you how well our little Henrys are doing. The sweet spire that we planted, they are doing amazing. They have some nice cute little red tint to them that I think is from the sunshine, and yeah, they have just really doubled, tripled in size even since we've planted them along this border, and I've been really happy with how well they've been doing. You can see our ferns are magnificent over here. These are the royal ferns. They are probably at least 5 foot tall this year. And as I said, it is time to trim some shrubs. This one I am definitely going to get after, the eastern snowbell viburnum. And we'll keep this one as a nice tree form as well. So yeah, definitely time to get after that because the blooms are all gone at this point. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed this garden tour. I know I always enjoy working around with you and talking a little bit about what's going on in the garden, what's changed since we've, met last, and what else I'm planning on doing in the future. So thank you again for joining me, and we'll see you next time. Bye!